Welcome to the Carolina Codecast. I'm Barry Jones, and with me today is Kevin Dees from RoboJuice. Say hello, Kevin.
Hey, how are you? Doing good. Thanks for having me on the show.
Glad to have you. So what are you up to these days?
Oh, many things.
Where to start?
So you mentioned, yes. So you mentioned RoboJuice. So over there, we're making custom software for companies. They'll typically come to us like with typically a more complex problem, and then we'll walk them through the process of solving that. So, we're always doing that sort of thing. And I say several things because that's one of many things that we have going on. We have the Website Leader podcast, which you have been on.
Thanks for having me on that, by the way. That was great.
Very appreciative. Yeah, absolutely. Business Website Leader is another thing on top of that. And the Website Leader podcast kind of is our driving marketing tool for Website Leader. And those are specifically websites that we will take care of everything A to Z for companies, particularly in the service realm. And let's see, we have TypeRocket is another one. That's software
I feel like I need to make a topic list
developers.
And let's back through each one of these things.
Yeah, absolutely. And I have a game company as well, and we mentioned possibly talking about that on the show.
All right.
But as nerds, there's a lot of crossover in a lot of those realms. So
that's
happy to be here.
and this is exactly my favorite type of conversations to have, just because as we kind of discovered with the conference, with the Carolina Code Conference, one of the reasons that it's a polyglot conference is because you can't really pigeonhole developers. Anybody in the technical field, they're in that field mostly because they're curious, they're always trying new things, they're always experimenting, and it sounds like you've got quite a lot that you've been into. So let's stick to the code side of it first. Talk to me about TypeRocket.
Yes.
Where did this come from? What is it? And where's it going now?
Right. So in 1987, I was born, and
How far back you want
I'll
to go
spare
here?
you the whole history. Yeah, I'll spare you the history of Kevin. I was on a podcast at one point, and I did that, and I was like, people didn't want to know that my mom taught me how to code, but
Hey, I did.
here we
That's
are.
pretty cool.
Yeah. So TypeRocket was something that I was working on. It's just a collection of tools, sort of like how PHP started. Anybody that knows the story of PHP, Rasmus Lerdorf was putting together these like C functions, and he said, "Oh, I'll just release and let other people use these." And that's what TypeRocket was. It was that for WordPress. It's just a group of utilities that I built, and it slowly turned into an entire framework that is very akin to Laravel. Anybody that's used TypeRocket will instantly feel like, oh, this is the Laravel of WordPress. So it just makes streamlining and building applications in WordPress very rapid. And probably somebody's asking, like you are, Barry, if we have all these tools available to us, why are we building applications in WordPress? Let's let WordPress do what it does best. Let's not have this golden hammer anti-pattern of like trying to beat WordPress into something it's not. But what we ran into in many client scenarios is they actually needed a good bit of WordPress. And so it was like, okay, we can use something like Laravel to build out our applications, but then we're going to have to build all the things that WordPress does, or try to slap WordPress onto a Laravel. And so it just made sense for us as we're building out these WordPress sites for a lot of our clients, e-commerce space or business space, that needs something more to not have to go and reach for something like a Laravel to do things that WordPress already provides. And so it just, again, you can rapidly build. If you put yourself in like a MVC, Django, Ruby on Rails, Laravel mindset, just think that, but within WordPress, so you don't have to add another layer of complexity or technical debt to what you're building. So that's ultimately what TypeRocket was.
Essentially, if for anybody who hasn't used WordPress before, it's a great tool to set up a website, a content-focused website that makes writing and managing the content easier. But it also has an entire ecosystem of plugins that are out there, and
yes,
there's definitely trade-offs with the plugins. So one of the biggest things is that you don't know if a plugin is going to keep being developed long term, or if it's going to get retired, even if it solves the problem you have.
There's over like 10,000 plugins in the WordPress ecosystem.
And some of them are clearly, more popular than others and not going anywhere. But I know I used one to that was retired, and now that it's entrenched as a core piece of the site that it was on, getting off of it is a huge pain in the tail. And it would have been a lot easier for me if I had just been able to quickly build the plugin that I needed. And essentially, when you told me about TypeRocket, that was kind of how I thought of it. If I need to set up a WordPress site for the WordPress functions, but there's some more advanced stuff that I need to do, I could take TypeRocket and have a good programming environment to work with within this in order to build out that more advanced functionality in WordPress where other people can still manage the content, right?
Absolutely. That's a great use case scenario when you need ownership of the technology and that is going to drive your business. You don't want to rely on, I mean, you do want to rely on open source, but in a way, you don't want to rely on one developer behind a plugin that may not be
Exactly.
around a little for as long as your company plans to be around. And TypeRocket, because it is open source, it's backed by RoboJuice, so you have a whole company behind it. It's not just an individual
Right.
developer, right? Uh, but because you're in control of that, if you need the feature, you don't have to send out a support request to the developer and say, "Hey, this one little thing that I need would be really nice," or hoping that they put the proper mechanisms in place for you to insert and customize things a bit. And the thing that we often run against is in the WordPress world, you can have like 20, 50 plugins in a site, but you only need like 3% of each one of those plugins.
That makes
So
sense.
then you have all of this debt, these plugins that add complexity, that weigh the site down, slow it down. It's not a great experience for you when you're administering the site, but then also for the customer, if you haven't optimized that well, you know, uh, time to first byte is, increased significantly, especially if you're not using page caching or something like that. So, TypeRocket really helps streamline that. It's extremely fast to develop in, but then also it keeps your user experience on the admin side super nice. And then, like you said, if you want full control over it, it gives you that. It gives you the opportunity to make those
Nice.
choices.
I know definitely one of my big points of frustration when I tried to get in and do some hands-on work with it was I managed to get in, not with TypeRocket, but with WordPress in general, was that I did almost nothing but PHP for 10 straight years. And for the last 10 years, I've barely done any PHP. And now getting into it, the language has improved so much and added so much and changed so much that I almost feel like I need to go through and relearn the language to
Yes.
jump back in and take
Come
advantage of what's
back.
there. I'm like, what are all these? It's so confusing now.
Yes. Come back. Okay, Barry. So PHP, since you left, you were leaving Cake probably 3 days, Cake PHP
Yeah,
3.
that sounds about right.
Yeah. So we have class types, union types, name parameters.
I think it was around
We have
2011 was when I
cleanup.
kind of stopped with PHP.
Uh, so we've got a lot of really cool tools that you can come back. We don't have generic types yet, but you can use doc blocks for those. We have return types now, so it's very much in the more Java-y declarative typing system, which definitely makes debugging a lot easier. I'm sure you've run into tons of those back in the PHP days, like
Yeah,
unexpected
honestly,
input.
so so back in the day when I used to do so much PHP, um, I was working at a company here in Greenville, a large company here in Greenville, who had a lot of Java developers. But it was during a time period when Java development, when Java IDEs did not compile one file at a time as you worked. And so every time you made a change, it had to recompile the entire project, and it took
Yep.
forever. And so what they ended up doing was
Yes.
they ended up using all of these Java backend services to power the critical pieces of the company. And then they would build PHP front ends that would actually just talk to them over SOAP based web services back in the day. And
Yep.
it was an interesting experience. But I remember when I was finally on both sides of this, because I mean my background in school was in Java, and all I wanted to do when I got out of school was Java. But I just kept ended up doing all this PHP instead. One of the things that really caught me off guard was I ran into more issues with debugging the Java code than I ever came close to running into debugging the PHP code. And it was to the point that I was so much more productive in PHP that I almost just swore it off for a little while. But then things got a lot better on the Java side too. Programming's changed so much in the last 20 years. It's been really crazy. But
it has. Everything's in JavaScript now.
Yeah, I've still managed to avoid that. I've not learned a single front end framework in the past decade. I'm still, jQuery rocks.
It's now, if this was a developer podcast, this is the part where like your listener viewership just goes like to the bottom.
Yeah, maybe.
But it's a polyglot, Carolina Code Conference.
Hey, there's a JavaScript line in this shirt, for the record.
Yeah.
Nothing against JavaScript. There was just too many frameworks, and the frameworks were changing so often, it just seemed like I couldn't decide on which one to jump into, on which one to say, okay, this one's going to stick. And it seems like now React is, but then again, Vue started coming up and really taking over.
Right.
And so it's hard. And I just don't do enough work on the front end side to commit to learning all these different front end frameworks.
Yeah. I mean, back in the early days, when you and I, early days, 10 whole years ago, we're so old.
20 for me. So.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, technically I'm about 15. I'll just say 10 though. I want to feel young.
I've sworn that off at this point. I just committed to the beard and just let the gray come in and everything. So.
Well, back when we were much younger lads, you could run the whole stack. A full stack developer was something that was semi-achievable. Mm-hmm. You could learn servers at the most fundamental level. We didn't have WebSockets or any of that kind of fun stuff. You could do your own sockety stuff, but you had servers, you had your backend language, you had some CSS and HTML. JavaScript was just ICANN. Like you said, jQuery. When you click the button, I want to make something on the page move around or whatever, and that was it. But then HTML3 or CSS3, HTML5, React. Then you have serverless and microservices, like the buzzword starts building and building. I remember the days like when Subversion, just copy and paste and make folders was the version control of choice. Now we have Git, which is awesome.
I was talking to somebody the other day, and I was actually telling them that we had 3 people collaborating on a project back then, and there was no version control system available. And so the way that we all worked together was we all hopped on one shared server with them, and we would count on them saying that somebody else was already editing the file so that we didn't accidentally jump in and overwrite each other. Yeah, that was a version control back in the day. But
and FTP uploads to update your live site. Not even SFTP, just hey, let's upload a new file, replace it.
Yeah, now there's definitely times when I feel like the old man shouting at the sky on some of this stuff, but but it is interesting to see. There's every action has an equal and opposite reaction, right? And so as the front end stuff got more complex, people started pushing for simpler solutions to it, and so you ended up with with things like Elixir's Live View and Rails's Hotwire and Turbo stuff that just tried to say, hey, you've got a interactive application with minimum work, you can still do everything on the server side. But there's different solutions depending on where you are. It's at a company where you need to clearly have where there's a larger team involved, then you need to have a distinct setup for here is your front end team. And they need to be able to do everything that they need to be able to do, and they just need to talk to whatever your multiple sets of back end teams are doing. That's one thing. At a smaller company where you've got a couple people, it makes a lot more sense to just focus on keeping the entire stack simple enough that those 2 people can do everything. And it's separation of concerns and the different needs and structure. It's going to vary based on where you are. But
yeah, you mentioned separation of concerns, and
that was actually where I was going to segue into with TypeRocket.
Yeah,
that was my plan.
It's the separation of concerns is an interesting topic to me because in the early days of the web, there was this place where you would put basically aesthetic stuff. I'm like, I've been talking so nerdy, and now I'm going to try to dumb down what I'm talking about. We would have font, tags and aesthetic declarations within HTML. And we're like, that's not great. Let's separate these concerns. Let's have this thing called CSS, and let's allow ourselves to have rounded buttons with that and not rely on images to do those things. Images should be just content. And, you have JavaScript for functionality. And so it's been interesting to see where we diverged and started separating concerns in the web space. And then in a way, we've converged right back to where we began.
Yep.
Or now JavaScript is running everything. And it's like, well, if we need HTML, then we'll server-side render that, and then that'll be our thing. And like you said, your segue back sort of to TypeRocket. TypeRocket's doing that in a way. It's saying, separate your concerns, take WordPress, your core technology, and not separation of concerns at an architecture level, right? Like separation of concerns in terms of like how you think about your business and how you're putting things together for the end user. So like have WordPress drive this thing, use tools within that ecosystem, but separate the concern of the customization parts over to TypeRocket versus 10 different plugins. And then, on your UI side, something else TypeRocket does for just people who are like, what is TypeRocket? I'm still kind of curious about that. Barry, let him talk, or make him stop if you're not on WordPress. But TypeRocket also gives you that UI library. So it not only is it the backend side that Laravel offers, it also provides utility to build out the interface side. So you can have a consistent feel across the WordPress interface without having to think about, hey, I need to pull in this custom React component or Vue component for this thing. It's like, no, I need an input field. TypeRocket takes care of that with one line of code.
Right.
If you need repeater fields, to stack things together, just 3 lines of code. Boom.
And so where can people find out more about TypeRocket?
So, not really social media. I'm not that young and newfangled yet. There is a little bit on YouTube, but TypeRocket.com is the best place to go, and then just kind of dive in. There's a video, you hit play, you can kind of see like the demo thing that I put together quite a while ago. But it's still a very stable platform. If people go over to GitHub, they'll see there hasn't been a ton of updates to the product. There's a few reasons for that. Number one, WordPress is hardcore into backwards compatibility. So you can know that your site that was put together 10 years ago will still be running today. And TypeRocket, because of that, has not had to like, oh, we need the new version to keep up with WordPress. It's like, we just have the new version to keep up with the PHP release cycle. And, we're PHP 8 support, and, that hasn't fallen out of support in our core because we're a fundamental system. We don't need to necessarily add a bunch of new features. It's up to you to build out the new thing. And so we have the solid foundation.
That's a big thing. Backwards compatibility is a huge selling point, especially if you've gotten really tired of having to update something every time a new version comes out. It's a fantastic goal to achieve. I think there are some languages that design their entire language around insisting that backwards compatibility will be maintained. I think Go was a big one for that as well. But yeah, it's fantastic. So if you want to learn more about TypeRocket, go visit TypeRocket.com. You can find out everything about it. If you're dealing with WordPress sites and you want to have a more effective programming experience within it, go check it out. And Kevin and RoboJuice will be happy to help you with all that. But there's something else you mentioned that I just have to ask about. Yes. Did you say you have a game company now?
All right. So you're a good host because you pretend like you don't know anything. But we did talk about it. We did talk about it earlier.
You're stealing the magic, Kevin.
Yeah. Broadway is where we belong. Exactly. Draw you in. So I do have a game company. I have been working on a trading card game for about 17 years. It started in high school. And I won't give you the whole story, but like any side project off and on, when I was a kid, I made my own version of Monopoly. I created an arcade like that you could walk into and play arcade games in my family's attic. Like I took random stuff and like used the Kinects, to make all these moving things.
Interesting.
So yes, when we talk about being a super nerd,
that's
I'm here.
The goal. I'm pretty sure that's our target audience at this point, Kevin.
Yes. At this point, what are we, 18 minutes in or so? It's definitely the only people left. So, yes, started the game company to get this game out the door. I started that, and so I finally have a release date for this game. The game is called Six Forms, and it releases March 19th, 2024, cool. Right when all the fun tax money comes in for everybody to have.
That's good planning.
frivolous spending. Not frivolous, because this game is very important to you. You should definitely
Nice.
pick it up. But it combines trading cards games with a board game
Okay.
like chess, and so that's kind of the twist
Interesting.
with it. You would think, oh, it's simple. You just take cards and you play them like pieces on a board, but it's not that simple. There's a reason it took me about 17 years to make this thing. I've been very methodical and meticulous about all the little elements, and actually had Marco Suarez worked with me. He does Methodical Coffee here in Greenville.
Marco.
He helped design parts of the game, the aesthetic pieces. He hasn't done all of the aesthetic pieces, but a good bit of them on the cards, like the card back, for example, has been done by Marco. And definitely blessed to be able to have somebody like him come in and help with the game, because I am not an artist. I have tried. It didn't work out.
I can relate to that. That's not my skill set. Just in just setting up this podcast, just doing the basic show graphics and stuff, I'm having to get people show me how. So this is how this Canva thing works. I literally just have to change the text,
right,
and it still feels really hard to me. It's like I'm trying to explain complicated tech things to my parents or something. It's a blind spot for me. I can't even explain it. But so tell me about what the gameplay is like. You mentioned it's kind of like a card game, or a combination card game and chess game. So are we talking something like the old style battle chess type video games where you would have two pieces, that a piece that would try to take another piece and you'd get to fight and see who actually won?
Right. Yeah. I'll do some explaining, game-splaining or whatever. So chess. I've actually met a few people who aren't really sure about what chess is. So I will do the most terrible thing and explain what chess is. So on chess, you have an 8x8 grid, and you take pieces from your side. Let's say you're white and the other person's black, and you'll have, 8x2, so 16 pieces per person. And you'll advance down the field trying to take out a specific piece called the king, right? And so to take out pieces, you collide your color into their color on the same spot. But the gotcha is pieces can only move in specific ways. So I take those elements, the board, the grid, and the movement of pieces, and only certain pieces can move certain ways. I take those and transpose those onto, basically poker size playing cards, but each card has specific arrows which dictate how that card can move. I shrink the board down to a 4x4 grid, because on an 8x8 grid, you end up just chasing each other around the board, and it could just take way too long to play a game. And because they're cards, things become harder to see. So, just shrink it down and make it a little bit more approachable as a game. And then because it's a trading card game, each card has like a unique facet or ability to it. So some cards will say, like, when you play this card, gain some resources. And you need resources in trading card games to play cards. So if most people are familiar with Catan, I know I just explained chess, but in Catan, you have different types of resources. You have wood, wheat, sheep, and brick, something like that. And you use those resources to do things like build and construct buildings to get points to win the game. In Six Forms, there's one type of resource, because I don't want you to be focused on resource management. I want you to be focused on managing the board. The resources are there to keep you from overtaking your opponent or the other player too quickly, and to kind of add a tempo.
The resources become the time
things start off. Yeah, so it just helps, give you that slow build up, and as you accumulate more resources, you can do more things, and the game gets more interesting over time. So it makes your early game very important, because if you aren't keeping up with the tempo of the other player, then they can overtake you just on they have control over the board because they have more things on the board. And with the other element of like how the actual game mechanically works is you'll play some cards to the battlefield, and you'll move them around. But the gotcha is if you move too far toward your opponent, they could potentially flank your card because you're becoming more exposed or vulnerable to them as you're moving away from your side, and your opponent gets benefits to that. So they can flank your card and do more damage to it, unlike chess where you'll just, if I move onto your spot, I take over. In this game, cards have like attack and health, and if the one card doesn't beat the other, then it can win. it can win. So it's not just like you automatically win by moving in that spot. There's some statistical like math things that happen to get you there. So if you're attacking somebody from behind in the game, the flanking comes into play, and that's one of the key pieces that really differentiate the game and make the board stand out.
Nice.
To where it's really not like any game I've ever seen in the space before.
Well, I think whenever it comes out, you and I are going to have to play, and then we'll have to do a recap episode, just talking about how the experience went.
Yeah, but yeah, so it's not like the idea hasn't been done before. It's just how I'm going about the idea is different. And we haven't seen a game in the industry yet that has taken for the long term in that genre, but we have seen that there is demand for that type of game. There's been 2 other games recently and since 2017 that have come out with that sort of mechanic and idea. But again, basically from a business standpoint, we haven't seen them work out, but from a demand and like player interest, there's definitely that out there.
Right.
So I'm hoping that my business experience with RoboJuice, TypeRocket, Business Website Leader, all the other things, plus my, programming brain and game design side of me, and in the longevity that I've been spending on building this will help it become something that withstands the test of time, So when the rains come and the floods come through,
the cards will be saved.
Yeah, I'm building on a rock.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, I know we talked about potentially having you come out after the conference to the game night that was over at Hack Greenville. Were you able to come out and do that?
So unfortunately, I wasn't able to come after Carolina Code. I needed to get home, help with the kids, put the kids down for bed. I feel like
that's an acceptable excuse.
Somebody, yeah. So it was more specific than that because we had planned for me to be away. But I'm pretty sure like somebody got sick or something like that. It was like one of those like, okay, here we go. You try to get away. I'm sure you're very used to this. Anybody with kids knows exactly what I'm talking about.
Stuff happens.
Yeah. So yeah, stuff happens. So yeah, but I definitely wanted to be a part of that and to get to. However, the parts of Carolina Code Conference that I was there for were, Barry, you did a great job. Like I know you were, I'm not trying to fluff you up.
I'll take it. You can come on.
Yeah. Okay. Well,
I'm kidding.
Genuinely, I'm always genuine. I would like to believe, but you were on the Website Leader podcast, and we talked about the conference, and it was clear from the podcast that you had a plan, but then to see it executed, and for you to work around all the things that happen that are unplanned.
The unplanned stuff was interesting.
That it shows that you thought about a lot because while things were falling off in some areas, like none of us knew, right? The only thing that we knew was that like a speaker couldn't make it because they got sick, but you already had a plan for that. So, it was nice that you showed up with a first aid kit for the conference ready to go. Much like I would show up with a first aid kit if I take my kids to the park type of thing. It's like, just in case.
Yeah, I pretty much obsessed about that conference for 4 months straight. My wife was really tired of hearing about it by the time it came.
Yes. The speaker lineup was excellent. I will say that it was a developer conference, right? So, if you aren't a super nerd, you can, but you need a super, if you need a super nerd, you can come. But if you're not a super nerd, a lot of those talks are going to be over your head. But I love many
what was
of
your
them.
favorite?
I think, well,
put you on the spot.
So, yes. So Jay Ruby was pretty good. The other one, I'm not going to remember the names of the speakers or the talk names, but there was one on SQL performance and SQL profiling. I thought that one was really good as well.
Is that the anomaly detection one? Or the ETL?
I think so.
Or Snowflake?
See, I told you.
All right.
I'm not going to remember the name, but those were two that stood out to me. The J Ruby one in particular, just hearing the story, there's a lot of story to that. It wasn't necessarily as technical, but it was, here's an idea, and here's what, if you have a similar idea, how that can develop and become something. And so just hearing somebody else's story.
Yeah, that was Charles Nutter. That was a really interesting talk. He's been with J Ruby from virtually the beginning. And it's, if you're not familiar with JRuby is a project to let you run Ruby natively on Java's virtual machine. And so you can take advantage of everything that's there within Java, but you can use the Ruby language to do it. And it's got virtually 100% compatibility with Ruby, except for specific libraries that call out directly to C that cannot be run on the JVM. But there are substitutes for almost every single one of those circumstances, even when it comes to the third-party libraries. The support's really incredible. But the story was great, and that if anybody's interested in reading that or in hearing that talk, it's up on our YouTube and Facebook pages. Yeah, I actually thought we had a decent blend. I mean, there were a lot of highly technical talks in there, but I actually thought we had a decent blend of the non-technical in there as well. Bruce Tates, when he was talking about his nautical adventure, I thought was really, really interesting.
I may have been, so I did do networking during some of the talks as well. So like hallway stuff.
That was the one right after lunch.
Okay. There was one talk for the non-technical, right, that I enjoyed, where basically how can developers and designers work
that
together.
was Sean Reed.
I thought that was a really good talk.
Yeah, that was a great talk.
Yeah, Sean did. Actually, saw him. I didn't talk to him, but I saw him at Tech After 5. So last Wednesday, the last Tech After 5. So it was really neat to see him in Greenville. I didn't realize he was in Greenville, and I think
he's the lead instructor now for the Code School, Carolina Code School.
Yeah. I thought that was another interesting thing about Carolina Code Conference was the number of people that came out to support that, and the conference in general, but not just necessarily from Greenville. I know it's somewhat regional, and there's a lot of familiar faces there. I got to run into a lot of people I just haven't gotten run into in a while, just because the tech scene in Greenville has, because of the pandemic, honestly, like a lot of meetups shut down, and people haven't been getting back together. I know Hack Greenville has started, like they're about to
October
do
12th. They're about to have Hack Greenville Nights.
October.
That's going to be really interesting.
Yep. That's the pilot. The pilot,
and they're going to do it
right?
like I think they're planning on having 3 talks at it. They're trying to do a scenario where they've got like 2 dueling shorter talks and then 1 big main talk set up, and that's actually something that came out of some suggestions from Ryan, who came down from Detroit, and he mentioned that this was a really interesting format they had in the tech community up in Detroit, and he said it was very popular and they really loved it. And so I'm interested in seeing. They're looking at doing this as like a quarterly thing, not a monthly meetup, but a quarterly kind of super meetup every quarter. And so it'll be interesting to see how that comes together. I can't wait. I'm definitely going to be out there. We'll also have extra Carolina Code Conference shirts for sale out there in case anybody was looking for one.
Okay. Yes. Pick them up. Barry does not want t-shirts stored in his house. You need to be able to wear it to represent. I need to pick one up. I actually haven't picked one up yet.
We can solve it.
So bring them to the Hack Greenville thing.
They're sitting in the back of my car in case I end up at any other various meetups, so I can just bring them in and hawk them for people to as needed. It's a great shirt. I love the shirt, but came out really, really well. But I ordered more than we needed, just because I wanted to have extras around anyway. But we will see.
Yeah, it's smart.
We'll see how it goes. But yeah, so I'll definitely see you out there for that at Hack Greenville Nights. And so circling back, I think the only other topic on the table, unless something else comes up, was the Website Leader podcast, of course, which we've talked about a good bit. But so tell me about how long you've been doing that. It's the Business Website Leader, right? Okay.
Yes.
So how long have you been doing that? Tell me about some of the guests that you've had on, not including me, of course. I don't want you to be biased.
Right. Yes. So we've only had one person on the show that was any good. So that was Barry. But everybody else. No, I'm just kidding. I'm not going to throw all the people on.
I'll edit that out if you.
So no, don't worry about it. It's just us nerds now. If we've made it this far,
you're really committed. If you've made it this far, I'm impressed.
Right. There's nothing wrong with being a nerd. I love being a nerd. It's great. So I'll give you kind of the pitch and sort of scenario of Business Website or Website Leader podcast. So we started the Business Website Leader platform, which was essentially designed to help businesses just get a professional presence online that would help them get the phone ringing. So what we did was we trimmed back everything that your traditional quote unquote brochure website, air quotes, brochure website would be, and we asked the question, what are the fundamental things you have to do to get those success criteria in place, getting the phone ringing and being professional. And so what that turned into was just really elegant websites where we aren't spending the budget on the aesthetic side. We're spending the budget on making sure the words are right, that you're communicating the point, that you're saying that, hey, my business has a problem that we solve, and you have that problem, and let us come alongside you and help you solve that problem. That was the primary thing, getting the messaging correct. Our issue then is, how do we let people know about that product? Well, networking. Well, we launched this product, and then like a year later, COVID happens, right? So then we're doing other, we have RoboJuice, we're doing custom work, but this product was taken well. We've had many clients say, "Wow, this is an incredible product." We had one company, their after school program. We launched this site, and not necessarily specifically just because of, obviously it takes a lot to run a business and there are many things going on, but after they launched the website, that gave them the extra confidence and more customers to be able to build another building. And now they've gone on to have that business acquired.
Nice.
And one of the key roles is the business website, their product. So we know the product works. We know people want it, but getting the word out about it. And that's where this podcast comes in, the Website Leader Podcast. So it was an answer in a way for us to say, how can we have interesting conversations with business leaders to create a community in Greenville, and to have a deeper conversation with the person across from the other side of the microphone. We do that podcast in studio, and it just allows us to have that conversation, to listen, and to have other people listen to that conversation. We've had anywhere from accountants to programmers / event hosts like yourself on the show, SEO experts, marketing experts. You had Tropical Grill on there.
Nice.
Laz, Laz, the owner of Tropical Grill, he was on there as well. You had, I'm trying to say, you had Tropical Grill as your catering for the event.
Fantastic. One of my favorite spots.
We had Laz on the podcast. Just did one with Phil Yanov. Tim Laurie was on there. Several people from just in the community have been on the show. We're about, let's see. I want to say we're like nearing 50. I just scheduled 57, and I have 3 more already scheduled to be recorded. And so, we'll be at 50 before the end of the year. So we'll be heading into 52 episodes. We've been doing the podcast for about 2 years now. And it's been a really great thing for RoboJuice and Business Website Leader in terms of brands. But, ultimately it's allowing us to stay connected to people and continue to build relationships. And that's really the foundation of any business. Like, that's why we're doing this podcast, right?
Absolutely.
Is, you want to be able to make Carolina Code Conference the go-to conference in this region and potentially other regions,
the quad state
and reach out.
With, North Carolina, South Carolina, Tennessee, and Georgia. I think, us being in that upper corner right there, it really, we're in a great position to bring a lot of interesting people together. And I think Greenville's an opportune venue for that, because you're not going to get Charlotte people going to the Atlanta conference or Atlanta people going to the Charlotte conference, but you might be able to bring Charlotte and Atlanta both into Greenville, since we're right dead in the center of them. And I think there's a real opportunity here long term, but we'll see. 2024 is the make or break year for the growth, to see if we can sustain all this great momentum that we've had. And so we're trying to grow, and we're going to be charging for tickets for the first time, and that's it's going to be an interesting dynamic to see how it all works out.
Yeah, because we have such a great tech scene in Greenville, I don't really see you having a problem with ticket prices, because I just went to Tennessee for LaraCon, and those, and they don't make any money on the event, even though they charge, right? Which is basically similar to what you're doing. And it's like, okay, $500 for that ticket per person. We take our entire team down there. It's fairly expensive, and we have to do hotels and all that.
It's not
going
to
to
be anywhere close to that expensive.
Right. Yeah. So like, but because of the tech scene in Greenville, it's, if you're saying like, I know you probably don't want to like nail down an exact price right now, but let's say it's $20, like $20 to come to Carolina.
It's going to be higher than
$20.
I'll go ahead and tell you, it's going to be somewhere between 100 and 200. I'm just trying to nail down exactly what that figure looks like. I've actually looked at.
I was 10 times off.
I've actually looked at All Things Open. I don't know if you're familiar with that conference or not, but it's a conference that's gone on in the Research Triangle for a while, and it's also a polyglot conference. And they've actually got a pricing structure that I think makes a lot of sense. You can either get a single day ticket or a full event ticket for basically a discount on that would be cheaper than just buying the two individually. And when you look at the cost breakdown of the ticket, there's basically a fixed cost per person who attends the event at all. And then there's a fixed cost per day per person. And so by doing that, you basically get to have all right, here's the price if you attend at all. And so we'll lump that in with your price per day for a single ticket. But if you're having a multi-day ticket, we've already covered your price per day in one day of it. And then we just need your price per day tacked onto it. And so I think they end up doing, it's like $100 a day or $150 for the whole event. And I think somewhere in that structure, that's based on the numbers that I had from previous years, somewhere in that range probably makes a lot of sense. I'm still working on some stuff with the accountant because I've got to figure out when you charge for tickets, there's attendance taxes. I didn't realize attendance taxes were a thing, but that's a thing with events. And so I've got to figure that out. And I've got to figure out what the whole piece of it looks like. But from everything that I've heard from people, that seems like it's a very reasonable price point, and it's the price point that will make sure that as we grow, we're covering the per head cost for attendees without having to just go and get more and more and more sponsors every year for the larger audience. And so we'll see what happens there. But for anybody who's listening, that's the area that I'm working with, somewhere in that $100 to $200 range, and I'm just trying to nail it down because I want to keep it low, but we'll right. Because I don't want to price anybody out of it, but we're also going to be having a scholarship program, so you can buy tickets for other people and contribute to make it sure other people can attend too.
Yeah, I don't think you're going to be pricing anybody out at $150 for the tech scene specifically.
A lot of these tickets are $800, $2,000 if you're talking about something like a reInvent or something. It's granted we're not reInvent, but one day who knows?
We're Greenville. We're the new and up and coming thing for my brain just started firing off all the amazing things that Greenville has done over the years. And we really have done a lot, but Carolina Code Conference is something that hasn't, I won't say it hasn't been something historically Greenville has done a lot. We have Grok a few times, but like there hasn't been like the conference that Greenville does every year on year that is, a bastion for the tech scene. We have Tech After 5 and Phil does a great job with that. But this, Carolina Code Conference, you have something that can be for developers, and developers love conferences. Even though many of us are introverts, we love to come out and be connected and see the interesting things that people are working on. And you've really tapped into that as a bit of a testimony for Carolina Code Conference. I appreciate that. Anybody that wants to come to that, you've got new connections you can make, keep your current connections charged and ready to go, acquiring new knowledge and just a breadth of knowledge of the space, exposing yourself to things that you wouldn't have otherwise been exposed to. Like I am with JRuby. I have no intention of picking up JRuby ever, but why is that one of my top talks then,
It's really interesting hearing how it all came together for sure.
Yeah. So, I think $150, if you are living in Greenville, you're in the tech scene and you're not taking that opportunity, then, I'm sorry. I will take that opportunity for you. Because there's only so many people you can facilitate, right? How many people can come to 2024?
So you have a new venue. The new venue, we're going to be able to grow to 300 this year. And so we're trying to expand our reach a little bit, pull in more people from outside of the area. And we already had a really good attendance from outside the area. We pulled a lot from North Carolina and Tennessee. this year, and that was great. That was really great to see. But we'll see if we can continue growing it. Greenville's such a natural hub area, and the downtown is just gorgeous. It's a wonderful place to visit. It is impossible to have a bad day in downtown Greenville. It really is. It's just such a nice way. I worked in downtown for like 8 years, and I would just go take a walk in the middle of the day just to clear my head and think through problems. And no matter what the weather was, it could be 100 degrees outside. It could be 0 degrees outside. Somehow it's always nice on Main Street.
Yep. Yeah, I saw Eeyore going down the sidewalk one day, and he was smiling. Okay, so that's how awesome Greenville is.
Nice, very nice, Kevin. All right, well, I appreciate the shout out there. Check out the website Leader Podcast.
Yeah,
check out TypeRocket, and stay tuned for the release of the new game. It was called what?
Six Forms. Yeah,
right,
sixforms.com. Sixforms.com.
Thanks a lot for coming today, Kevin. Very Enjoyed having you. Oh, and one last shout out. I can't go without this. Thank you again to Herd Media for helping me put together this podcast in the first place. They're teaching me the ropes of how to do all this stuff. I'm learning my way through the editing process and everything else, but they've been a huge help and support in getting this thing out the door for me. So thanks for that. All right.